distinguished guest today, Advocate Padmashri Norma Alvares, is one of the topmost legal activists in Goa from Goa Foundation, who, along with her better half, Claude Alvares, has been a prominent figure in struggle to save Goa from destruction since the last 4 decades. Through Goa Foundation, I request by Norma to enlighten all of us on today's auspicious occasion. Let's welcome by Noma Alvas. Put your hands together, please.
Professor Paranjoy, Senior Advocate Agnello Furtado, Sudeep Dalvi, friends, ladies and gentlemen. It is entirely my misfortune that I did not know Father Bismarque well at all. Of course, I knew who he was. I knew the basics of his life. A former priest who gave up the clerical robes out of disillusionment with the policies of the church and plunged headlong into social movements in Goa. I had seen him in gatherings a couple of times. I had said hello to him also, but I never had any real interaction with him on a one-to-one basis or even in a group discussion. So I could say something personal to you about my experience with him. Not that I did not want to. It is just that the occasion never arose, and then all of a sudden he was gone. His death, an unresolved mystery. And that is why I am so thankful to Sudeep Dalvi, Bismarck's most loyal lieutenant soldier. He always reminds me of the army because of his outfits, who invited me to this function to speak to you. I am grateful to Sudeep Dalvi for regularly keeping alive the memory of Father Bismarck, not just remembering the man, but having this occasion to remember what Father Bismarck stood for, which is social activism. And that is what I wish to speak to you on today. Father Bismarck was clearly alive to people's issues, people's struggles. He had this passionate desire to be able to stand with the people in times of conflict and help to resolve it, find solutions, whether in the cassock, whether out of it. He took up issues from environment degradation, the menace of drugs and its impact on the youth, communal disharmony, violence of all sorts to women, to children, to marginalized. This affected Father Bismarck in a very, very vital way. And that is what he dedicated his life to, using his guitar and a song on his lips to draw the youth together, to draw people together, to enlighten them of the problems, and to take their advice, their opinions, their solidarity on how to resolve these. A couple of weeks ago, there was a PIL on an environment issue, and the judge asked the bona fides of the petitioner. The lawyer replied, he is a social activist. The judge said, everyone is a social activist. There are too many social activists in Goa. The judge perused the petition for a while, asked the lawyer if there was anything else to be said about the petitioner. The lawyer could not say anything further on the bona fides of the petitioner. The judge dismissed the petition. I thought how unfortunate, not just that nothing further could have been said about that person, but how unfortunate that social activists seem to have been associated with busybody. You got nothing else to do, so you come to the court with a problem. You claim you are a social activist, which you don't require any qualifications for, and I'm not going to hear the petition. I don't know what the content of the petition was, whether it had merit or not, but social activist seems to draw a kind of, I would say, mocking response from the court. And I thought it is unfortunate, because even from a constitutional point of view, Article 48A, Article 51G, everyone is required to protect the environment, to look after the trees, the rivers, the forests, the animals, to ensure that our environment, our social milieu is protected. Everyone ought to be a social activist. In fact, I believe that social activism, as Sudeep Dalvi has just given you a whole lot of areas in which we need to introspect, social activism is the need of the hour. Everyone needs to be a social activist. Whether you are a professor in a college, whether you are a school teacher, whether you are running a business, whether you are a spokesperson, whether you are a fashion model, whatever be your profession or what you are engaged in, you need to be a social activist. Why? Because at the end of, or even while you are accumulating your wealth, while you are engaged in your job, while you are doing what you are paid to or what you are earning from, if life around you is disintegrating, the air we breathe, if it's no longer pure, look at the state of Delhi, it's getting worse and worse, and that's why people are coming this side, perhaps to pollute this area. If the environment around you, the water that we drink, the air we breathe, the hills, the rivers, the fields, the flowers, the trees are no longer there or are in such a dilapidated state, what use is all the money that we accumulate? No point in going to the US now, Donald Trump is chucking everybody out from there also. Where are we going to go then? This is our home. Our constitution requires us to protect it, to look after it, and the only way is to be a social activist, which means do something which is beyond your own personal house, your compound, your little fiefdom, your family. Look at what is around you and see in what way you can contribute to the protection of this tiny little state. Goa seems to have already hit rock bottom in a number of areas. As far as the environment goes, you hear of coastal erosion, our beaches are disintegrating, sand dunes are disappearing, heat, we are having heat waves, we are having monsoon continuing at odd times, beginning at different times. There is no regularity to the seasons. This is all the result of climate change. Some politicians do not accept it will happen, but what scientists predict is that this is going to happen sooner rather than later. On our living front, we have daylight robberies, where the thieves even require you to prepare a meal before they will get out of your home after robbing you. We have got rape of young women, which happens ever so often. Murders, killings happen for little or no good reason. Students commit suicide. There's something which is really going wrong with our society and the way we are living in. But in all this kind of despairing situation, when you read the papers in the morning, you don't know whether to turn to the second page because the first page has so much of bad news in it. But in all of this, there is one really hopeful and positive sign which I see, and that is people are awakening. Village after village, citizens are getting together to fight for their way of life. I saw a recent tag, Our Heritage, Our Future. Some program is going to happen. We want to protect our heritage, our future. And it's not necessarily the literate, the educated who are doing this only. It is to large measure even people who are so supposedly uneducated, illiterate, village women. People are saying no to commercial projects, no to IITs, no to film cities. A Gram Sabha recently rejected the Unity Mall, some kind of an administrative building along with the mall which is supposed to come up, even though it had a lot of permissions. It reminded me of the very well-known Nylon 66 agitation, where the people of Keri Ponda did not want that factory of Thapar DuPont on their plateau in their village. And they protested. And the party came to the panchayat last of all, having got everybody else's permissions, from central government to state government to excise to whatever was required. And then the people were there, standing outside that panchayat house, the panchayat ghar. In those days, there used to be very small panchayat ghar. And what had come up for permission was construction of compound wall. Construction of factory had to come up a little later. 3,000 people standing outside a panchayat ghar waiting for decision. And the panchayat, under pressure from people, took the decision to reject the compound wall. All hell broke loose. Because they said, we've got every permission. What is this panchayat permission? But Panchayati Raj had just come into force. And at that time we believed that Panchayati Raj was everything. That power was in our hands. In us villagers, in our village, we could decide our future. The rest, of course, is history. Party went back to the court, claiming that we've got every permission. Court said, why didn't you go to the panchayat first? You should have seen if the village people wanted you or not. What are the use of the other permissions? Of course, there was that firing. Somebody died. The Goa's first martyr, in fact, died. And eventually, Thapar DuPont left and went out of Goa. The power of Panchayati Raj as seen by panchayats at that time. So now people, I find that there is this awakening. Citizens are opposing highway expansion, felling of trees, they are opposing marinas, they are opposing golf courses, opposing river sand mining. And so while we despair of, when we look at the newspapers, of another new project that is coming upon us, we need to also take heart, because alongside the new project is opposition which is also brewing. And that is the sign that Goans are alive. Yes, we are alive. We are not finished. Despite what is happening, we are in our different ways rising to the occasion. It does not matter if every opposition, every protest does not succeed. There are some protests which have lived with us so long that we don't know whether we really will succeed, though we continue to protest. The removal of the casinos. Every 2-3 years you get a new promise that it will go in 6 months, it will go in 1 year. The dreaded coal transport. One day it will blacken not just Vasco, but it will blacken all of Goa. The railway expansions, which is trying to destroy our wildlife sanctuaries. These are projects which we are protesting and protesting. We get successes, but they re-emerge again, hydra-headed monsters, so to speak. I salute the people of Welsam for their struggle which they have continued in the face of insurmountable opposition. They have protested, they have had their dust enter their homes, they have had their access also destroyed in several ways, but they are protesting. And I think what is important from all these protests is that we Goans have finally recognized that if we want to protect Goa, we have to fight for it. We cannot rely on those who are in power, those who are administering us, we cannot rely on them. I believe that we have to continue this struggle in a strong way. I remember years ago when I just started legal practice, I had a case on Kalangut and Kandoli villages. We took up the issue of hotels, rent backs, all these coming up in that village. They were in violation of law. So we went to the court. But people in Kalangut, I know, were opposed to the petition. They felt development is finally coming after so many years of nothing happening in our village, and here is a group opposing it. 20 years later, I remember people from Kalangut again came. They were protesting that their water had gone. They were protesting that their youth had got corrupted, motorbikes, the drugs, all this kind of scenario. I remember saying to them, Kalangut is finished. Forget it. Don't come and ask me to argue a petition. I'd rather argue a petition for areas which still can be saved. Galjibag, Morji, Mandre. Kalangut is over. But they persisted. I took the case. We did get a good order. Today I realized that what I said to them was wrong. There is no place, howsoever it has gone down, howsoever it has lost its original charm, which is not worth saving. No place. There is no tree not worth saving. There is no river not worth protecting. No hill, no field. If you want to protect it, come forward and protect it. There is nothing like, it's too bad we can't save this area. There is, however, a difference between social activism, which leads to protest and agitation, and social activism, which ends up in the court. There is a big difference. Social activism, which leads to an agitation, a protest, has no rules. It can take many forms. It depends on the spur of the moment decisions, the crowd that has gathered, what is the latest that is happening from the government, the oratory skills of the persons who are at the mic. All this can create a wonderful end to social activism, and I do believe that that is the best form. If you can agitate, if you can protest, if you can bring everybody out on the streets and keep it going and force the government to change, you get what you want. It is a very, very good form of social activism. But social activism, where you want to take a matter to court, requires a slightly different mindset. It requires dedication, you have to struggle for a time, perseverance, commitment, and a deep study of the issue. And I feel that that is where sometimes our social activists fail. We want to take the issue to the court, but we do not have enough of all these four things that I mentioned: dedication, perseverance, commitment, and study of the issue. If you want to take the matter to the court, you need to know much more than just bringing the problem to the court. Courts don't find answers. Judges don't find solutions. It is for the petitioner to guide the proceedings in a manner which will reflect what the possible end could be. You know that there are prayers in the petition. We say what we want. But you need to have backup alternatives. You need to have options, at least at the back of your mind. So that if you cannot get upfront what you want, you can petition a little bit so as to get some good result out of the petition. You need to have studied the issue, found out what other kinds of similar petitions may have arisen, what is the mind of the court, are there cases which come up which are of that same type. You need to do more than just bring the problem to the court. I don't think activism, social activists do enough in this line. Not everyone, but I find that petitions, very often from how it's proceeding in the court, petitions sometimes lack depth. And perhaps That is why the judge said there are too many social activists in Goa. Because if petitions are filed because you think of the problem, you say this is wrong and you rush to the court, you haven't checked up, you haven't done enough research on what orders were passed, what is the present status of notifications, are there orders issued, what is the government stand on it. All this has to be done quickly, in a hurry maybe, but it has to be researched. So social activism, if it's going to the court, needs sufficient research. When Goa Foundation took the mining matter to the Supreme Court, there was 20 years of work before it. 18 petitions filed in the High Court. I had argued each one of them. Every petition admitted. Court saw that there was something in it, but we didn't get interim relief. So there was so much of research behind it that we could show to the Supreme Court all the manipulations, all the violations, all the connivance of government with the mining companies, how they were defrauding the law, how they were making more money than was required, than they could have made out of that. When I took the garbage petition, I was appointed as the amicus curiae in the matter. I had petitioners who worked the garbage issue. There was Patricia Pinto who was with the CCP, and she was working the garbage issue, so we could bring some kind of solutions to the court. There's still a problem with garbage, I know. But every time we came up with ideas based on what we were doing. There was KD Sadale in Ponda who also took up a project for cleaning the nala and recycling and so on. Long ago I had a petition on the power plant, the Salgangar Reliance power plant. I knew nothing about power, but I had a very good petitioner, former Chief Secretary J.C. Almeida. He gave me every kind of point to put before the court. We were telling the court what would happen the next day, and it was happening. The matters were going at a kind of a pace. The court accepted what we said, but eventually we lost the petition because the court took refuge in the fact that this is a policy of the government. Yes, you are right. Everything that you say is right. Everything that you say is happening, is going to happen, is happening. But this is a policy decision. The point I'm trying to make is that you need to go to the court with a lot of information which is correct, valid, and which will support your petition. One last thing. I think we have been doing firefighting all along. A project comes, we scramble around, we try to find out what is the environment consequence, which are the rivers close by, how many fields are there, what is the population. I think we need to change our tack also a little bit, because social activism, I believe, requires preemptive thinking and action. What if, when a project comes to our village, we can reply saying that we already have some other scheme for this area. We cannot take your project because our village already has a different plan. Now you know that the villages, all village panchayats are required to prepare a village development plan. This is mandatory. What is the village development plan for the village? Justice Sonak had passed an order which mandated the villages to do it. Nobody has done it. No village panchayat has got a plan for their village which is ready, accepted by the Gram Panchayat and passed by the Panchayat and is available, allocating areas for different uses. Not done. When I argued the village panchayat's case against the village panchayat of Velsa's case against the railways, expanding and cutting off the access of people, the village panchayat told me that is the road for the people. I said it to the court. The court asked me, show us where it shows that it's a road on your plan. I turned to the village panchayat, they had no plan. We lost the case. So I think today, if we, citizens, especially where we say we have the panchayat is with us, where we've got people in the panchayat who are with us, let us see whether we can organize, whether we can get our panchayats to think about what is the plan that we have for the village, what is our idea for our village, so that if a project comes, we can turn around and say, but we have this plan already which we have earmarked for the area. It's a different tack. It's along with the firefighting, but it's a kind of advanced ammunition which we keep ready in case, and which as most likely happens, government thinks of yet another project, yet another IIT, yet another film city, yet another mall. All these, let us try and find a way to defeat them with our own plans which are prepared and approved. So on this occasion, as we gather together empowered with social activism, I would say to Father Bismarck, let your spirit continue to live in all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, by Norma, on behalf of all of us, for highlighting the importance of social activism, social activists, especially the activists fighting in courts, and the need to have more active participation of and support of people to fight our social evils. Thank you for your enlightening words.